All right, welcome back to Modern Mondays at Guardian Games. We're Portland Paper. Ian Lunger's hanging out here with me, Travis Cooper, and we've got round number 2 going on. We have sort of a red-green Urza's Saga liquid metal coating deck that's playing some Boseijus here, and we've got Nat that's just on red-black rock, and sans Luris these days. So I think we've replaced Luris with like some seasoned Pyromancers. I don't know if Lily of the Veil's in there, but I think definitely some Spyros. And we have a turn 1 Ragavan, which is always a good start. All right, that Ragavan 8 in Unholy Heat. And we've got a Kroxa. Just discard a card right now. It'll probably come back later. All right, got a Dash Ragavan for Vinny. Definitely going to get a treasure token. So a little ramp, and we have Den of the Bugbear. So there's already one of those out for Nat. So does Ragavan doing the opposite of what Goblin Guide does? It clears a land from the top of Nat's deck.
Okay, Travis, I'm here with you.
You're here with me, together, just the two of us. All right, yeah, we had some major technical difficulties there. That was a stressful challenge, but I think we got it. I think we got it sorted out. Hopefully, knock on wood. Pray to whatever deity you choose to, or Hell Satan for us, so we can keep this going. So okay, Vinny or Ian, Vinny's actually not playing Karn. Vinny's just on liquid metal coatings, Boseijus, and I think Ancient Grudges in the main, but there is not Karn in the deck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bold moves, Vinny.
All about turning things into artifacts, buying back with Ren and 6 your Boseijus, that kind of thing. Gruul. Hello, fellow nerds in chat. Thanks for bearing with us here. Doing our best with our resources to get some good paper magic streaming on a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis.
Okay. So
you back with me here, Ian?
yes.
Out of tech land?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what has happened so far. It looks like nothing.
Well, we've had a Ragavan played, a Ragavan heated, a Dash Ragavan, a Kroxa was played, and there was some discard, and now it looks like we got a K command to buy back Ragavan and have Vinny discard.
It's not doing this on Vinny's end step then.
I think it is Vinny's in step. Now Nat's going to untap.
This makes sense.
Turn number 4.
So Nat can't really run the Ragavan into the construct unless he's got some sort of removal spell.
Yeah, Construct's going to be a 2/2. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's Vinny's play is pretty telegraphed at this point. You don't want to waste a activation of Saga. Not much else you're going to do.
Nat's sitting on the Unholy Heat, so could have gone for the Dash Ragavan.
It looks like Nat doesn't really value the Ragavan, or maybe has an extra one in hand. And so the end of turn Kolaghan's command sort of made an elemental, sort of. But yeah.
Feels like Nat must be valuing getting this Kroxa on the board quickly. It feels like there's not really any other reason to kind of like quote spew resources, I suppose, in that way, unless you're really trying to turbo out the Kroxa.
I mean, Kroxa is a really strong card, I think, in this matchup where Vinny is not playing white, and there's no way not playing white, not playing black that I've seen, and there's no real way to permanently deal with the Kroxa. You can kill it with the heat, or you can make your Saga tokens bigger and maybe get a Shadow Spear on it, but Kroxa definitely presents a problem.
Vinny's basics always great.
Little basics, baby. All right, making a construct. Those constructs and treasures look a little too similar for me. All right, floating a mana with the Saga, not making construct number 2. I'm gonna guess a Wrenn and 6. That's my guess for play.
There are definitely Karns in that deck, Travis.
There's Karns in the deck. Did I lie to you?
You did lie to me.
I feel like I was maybe misled. Oh, Soul Guide Lantern. Perfect timing for that.
Yep.
Gets a Kroxa out of the yard.
Yeah, Vinny definitely catching wind of what Nats. When your opponent plays Culligan's Command, gets a Ragavan out of the yard only to put it back in the yard via their own card, feel like you catch on to what they're after.
That's a pretty big goif there. Enchantment, artifact, land, creature, instant. Is there a sorcery? I can't quite see if there's a sorcery in Nat's graveyard. No. Don't see a Thoughtseize or anything, so.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, always like called shots in chat. Feels good to do. Congratulations. And Blast Zone for Vinny is also pretty good. Just takes out one thing on Nat's side of the board, but kind of prevents Nat from playing multiple 1-drops. Like Darcy's really good in this matchup. Just being able to fly over blockers is important. But we're just going to cycle a land.
Vinny's board positioning is looking pretty good here.
You mean there's a lot? Vinny's things on the board are larger than Nat's things on the board?
Yeah, in general. I mean, I think Nat's deck, there's not a lot of like comeback mechanic here. You know, you can kind of present blockers with Seasoned Pyromancers as a form of card advantage and/or, you know, continually play Kroxa. But I think Vinny's grind plan is a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I mean the deck is built to grind basically with like Wrenn and 6s, recurring Boseijus and Sagas, and you do have a bit of the early game with Darcy's and Ragavans, but yeah, very very mid to in game type deck too.
I think that's why I was a little bit surprised to see Nat kind of play the Seasoned Pyromancer, discarding Ragavan and a removal spell, and kind of set up shop. As I think that sort of slower line of play that the Pyromancer is representing in that case, I don't think favors him in the long run.
And sorcery, going to make Goyf, if it comes back, bigger. Inquisition takes a bolt, and we've got, see, a 4/4 construct and a Darcy on Vinny's side, so we're just coming in with a delirious Darcy, ask him for a trade. We get a trade. This is Modern Mondays, Guardian game, pretty competitive 4-round Modern event. Currently, we're in round number 2. You can see people's records below their names. So both of these players are 1-0, and there's a fair amount of competitive folks that come out. And it's a official event. They're running it here, and it's sanctioned and all of that jazz. Okay, you got to put Karnza back in there. I thought Vinny had dropped the Karns, but I guess the Karns are back. All right, Den of the Bugbear tapped and passing the turn.
Vinny looking to wall up behind the bridge. It's kind of depend, I think, a lot on how many main deck K commands Nat is playing as to whether this this plan works or not. So far through one of them.
We're going to the blow up the lands route here.
Does Vinny toss out the Ragavan just to make sure we have no cards in hand? And the answer is yes.
Okay, so Vinny is eventually going to draw into probably a Wrenn and 6, and meanwhile is going to be just destroying Nat's lands.
You're just going to blow up my shit every turn.
I'm going to blow up your lands and then eventually find a Wrenn and 6 and loop a lightning bolt.
I'm going to play a couple more turns.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Nat's asking what's going to happen and predicting that all of his lands are going to go away. And Vinny says, yes, your lands are going to go away. Eventually, I'll like ultimate Wrenn and lightning bolt you to death. And so Nat's in it for a couple more turns, but I think we might see a concession here soon. We actually had a Urian deck the first round, but we had some technical difficulties. I don't know if we have I think we might have a full VOD of that to upload to YouTube later, but yeah, shuffling, especially when we're double sleeving, is pretty hard with Urian. A drawback. And there we get a concession from Nat, and going to game number 2. So for sideboards, we don't know what the players have, but I'm guessing there's some amount of spellbomb type effects. One-sided exile graveyards and Nat's board. I'd want those just to prevent value from things like Wrenn and 6, and also being able to cantrip is important. And then any of your, I think 2-for-1 cards for Nat, you're probably going to bring into. Black-red doesn't have access to dress down, so probably engineered explosives if you're going to combat the tokens from Urza might be important. What are you thinking, Ian?
Well, Vinny brought in a Clothis, which seems great here because that once that's there, it's going to stay. Also brought in 2 Veil of Summers, which are going to be really, really good here against Nat's Kolaghan's commands. And lastly, a couple of Endurances, which I think Endurance is good in the matchup. We'll have to see what Vinny's looking to cut here for Endurance. That's, in my opinion, the kind of weakest of all of those potential options.
I like Endurance because these Rakdos rock decks are pretty dependent on having Delirium to kill your Planeswalkers with Unholy Heat, because these walkers are ticking out of bolt range on the turn that they're played with both Wrenn and Karn. And so being able to kind of bait your opponent into using something like a Darcy attacking or a Heat that then you can block once you nuke their graveyard, or the Heat basically shocks, I think can be a turning point in the game. Yeah, so I like the Endurance, but you do have to cut something.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're Vinny, you can probably pretty easily get away with cutting Darcy's. I mean, you're going to play the longer game here. You're the control deck, I think, in this situation. And you're on the draw this game. So I could see cutting some number of Darcy's, some number of Ragavans, accepting that you're going to be in the control role.
Looks like we have a shout out in chat asking if this is Vegas Vinny. This, in fact, is Vinny that can audible to Vegas Vinny, but we're not in Vegas right now, so it is just it's Portland Vinny, not Vegas Vinny. I do like Clothis is a card that I think is going to get a pretty big uptick in sideboard play. It's a really strong effect that is hard to remove. There is stuff like Prismatic Ending, but if you're not in white, it's going to be a really hard card to deal with and just generates advantage every turn for a pretty low cost of 3 mana as a permanent. And that's something that I think, if you're playing a Lurrus deck, it's not worth it to drop Lurrus to play a card like that, but that's a card that I think will be explored and played in sideboards.
Yeah, draw on.
But not, I mean, and also like, I mean, you play like 1 or 2 kick mana on but like,
On that side, I didn't really get a chance to see anything of what was coming in for the sideboard, but I imagine we're maxing out on whatever number of Culligan's commands that Nat has as possible. So I would think that would be 3 or 4 in that case.
would you ban it out of your
Probably,
snap your fingers and then
I'm not sure if Turok would come in if you would max out on Turoks here.
I think I don't know what the number between main deck and sideboard for Voidwalkers are. Voidwalker's a really strong card in this matchup too, so I could see that. Maxing out that in your main deck too. Any card that is good that has some incidental graveyard hate, I think you want in there. And the same thing with artifact cards where, max out on Kolaghan's commands, but you might not bring in like your Shattering Sprees.
Right, Nile Spellbomb would be great here. I'm not a huge fan of Nat playing a ton of discard spells in this matchup. I would consider cutting some number of discard spells here.
And it's kind of the traditional, like, even though this isn't a Jund mirror, it feels like it plays out that way, and that is something you do in the old school, like, boomer modern Jund mirrors, is you board out almost all of your discard spells with more threats. It's probably nice to. I think you'd want to keep in maybe like two Thoughtseizes or something like that to be able to like turn 3 Thoughtseize and like tag a Karn, or if Karn minuses to get a bridge to sort of tag something like that. But if you have enough threats, boarding all those out seems fine too.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you are a Seasoned Pyromancer deck, so that kind of insulates you a little bit from the Thoughtseize being completely dead in certain situations.
Looks like chat's on a Urian tangent here. I will say there's a lot of competitive players at Guardian, some really good players, and it seems like folks that are invested in Modern tend to have access within friend groups of most of the cards they need. And Urian's like fairly popular. It bounces back between like piles with and without Urian, but yeah, people definitely play it.
Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. Yeah, bubble. And I'm going to bubble you.
All right, Nat has full information for next turn as well.
I'll draw.
Okay, Vinny's got a fetch land, so we might do the old slow scrying thing here with Bobble.
Yeah, something like a Wrenn and 6 would really round out Vinny's hand here, kind of sitting on only answers, no threats.
And that's a pretty heads-up play that if you've played a fair amount of Modern, when you're playing against black decks, you want to use your Bobble on your opponent's turn, not your own turn when you play it, to kind of insulate yourself from that discard effect. Nope. Oh, there it is. That's a kind of a nightmare to see if you're Nat, if your opponent resolves a Wrenn and 6 and starts to get to plus it.
Yeah, Vinny's got the fetch land. He also has, I believe, the Sekenzin, the new red legendary land to generate some sort of value if it kind of gets down the road here, where Vinny is flooding out, but I think we're a ways away from that. Looks like Vinny wants to keep Veil up, so just passing the turn.
Oh man, I like playing Rin there just because if your opponent has to like dash a Ragavan to kill it, like that doesn't feel good as a person dashing the Ragavan because you sort of like take off a turn and your mana's all tapped, and there's no delirium, so Rin's not going to die to heat. But it is tempting. Keeping the Veil up is like it's hard not to want to do that.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, you know, Vinny's I think just kind of Ren being the only threat, banking on the fact that Nat will play something and then Vinny will be able to kill it here and then play the Ren and keep up the Veil or removal spell, which I think is reasonable. I think if Vinny was flush with threats in hand, I could see just tossing the Ren out there, but
And then Voidwalker, anything else? Heat the Voidwalker. In this case, exile.
It gets it.
All right, we got a wish counter on that Unholy Heat.
Alright, untip.
Nat is quite close to Delirium here. We have Sorcery, Artifact, and Creature in yard, so just a fetch, and that's there.
Play Ren. And let's plus on the foothills. Play the foothills. And so go.
All right, it looks like we have a Heat, a Veil, and a Goyf in Vinny's hands. So that's pretty...
Yeah, this gives me delirium.
Oh, ouch.
The damage happens before it ends up in there, so he just takes 2.
Oh, okay.
That feels bad, man.
Yeah,
I think we're going for a Dash Ragavan, and it's not gonna turn out for Nat like Nat wants it to.
well, that'd be surprising, right? Because Nat is aware that Vinny had an Unholy Heat in hand. I believe when the Inquisition was played turn 1, Nat saw it. So I would hope that's not the play we see, but you know, it has been a number of turns, so of course possible that Nat has forgotten, but
I wish I knew it was in Nat's hand. That. Oh well, here we go. We're gonna Veil this. At least that'll leave the shields down for a Dash Ragavan.
true.
I mean, doesn't feel good.
No. Yeah, I was kind of hoping we'd see the K command 2 to Ren bring Voidwalker back to hand here. But I can see also, you know, K command being a pretty valuable card in this matchup given the kind of Karn ensnaring bridge tendencies on Vinny's side. Maybe Nat's feeling like got to keep K command. And I guess the K command play would have gotten countered by Veil of Summer in any case, which would have been an even bigger blowout.
All right.
Not red though.
Say what?
Not red.
Not red. Go ahead. No, stop it.
Yeah, untip.
Well, this is very surprising. Okay, there we go.
All right, hold on 1 second here. I'm gonna fiddle with some cables. Keep it going.
Apologies, chat. So it looks like Vinny's going to drop the Goyf here.
Creature, instant.
Pretty large. I think it's going to be at least a 5/6.
Walker land. So no enchantment, no tribal. So 6, 7. 6, 7.
Looks like we're coming in at 6/7. Gonna pass the turn. Outside of heat range. Haven't really seen much of Nat's hand. Obviously, something like a Terminate would take it out just fine.
There is a Heat in the hand. I think there's a Heat and a Ragavan and an Unknown in Nat's hand. We got confirmed 5/6 on that Goyf. Is that
6-7.
6-7,
I believe is what the
Jesus.
players is what the players came to as the
Right.
sizing. I think probably the standard items plus artifact plus planeswalker is how we get to 6-7 here. And by standard items, I mean land, instant, sorcery, creature.
I think this is a situation where you realize like how much missing Lurrus like affects these decks. Where if you don't have a good play in Nat's position, you could use your mana to put Lurrus in your hand, and then that's a threat that your opponent has to consider for the next turn. And then it's kind of like a 2-for-1 if you draw a land or a bobble or something, and just like not having that is rough. Oh, and then we're gonna see this Ragavan taking one for the team, hoping for the Goyf block.
I think Vinny's smarter than this. I think we'll see the Heat hit the Ragavan here. Unless Vinny's not too worried about, letting Nat have the 2-for-1, but or I guess the 1-for-2 in this case.
And Vinny is just has all the good cards in this game here. You hit the Ren and 6, got the Sagas, got the Veils,
Come on, baby.
and Terminate's probably your best draw here if you're not.
Yeah, even Terminate gets veiled.
There is a Veil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vinny grabbing both veils.
Oh
In
boy.
the top small amount of cards. It could this could be salt inducing. Second veil. Just an absolutely brutal turn of affairs for Nat.
Ouch.
Yeah, that seems
This is brutal here. And I think you can see like red black is very low to the ground, and you don't have, outside of Season's Pyromancer, you don't have much you got Season Pyromancer, you have Kroxa, but those are it for your sort of like big mid-game threats. And something like Tarmogoyf is just it is so big at such an early point in the game, and is like really hard for a lot of decks to deal with, especially once you get out of heat range. Do you think that Crypt was mostly brought in to fetch off of Urza Saga?
I kind of don't think so, given that Soul Guide Lantern is generally like a better get if you're just looking for something to grab off Saga. Maybe Vinny just feels like the only way he loses the matchup is to repeated Kroxa castings. I don't know. That is an interesting one.
All right, I'm gonna go. We got plenty of time left. I'm gonna try to find another round for this one. So we'll be back momentarily to hopefully get a game 3 of another match.
Portland paper.